I use ChatGPT, so don't judge. Um, story time, story time, story time, story time, story time, story time, and I will be reading. So don't look at my eyes. Just don't. It's October 31st, 2025, Halloween night. Your neighbor's being haunted. You might ask by who? Trick or treater? No, just wait. Do you know Joe? Calling him Joe Sloman. He's single, scraping by on federal minimum wage right now. That's $7.25 per hour. That hasn't changed since 2009, despite inflation eroding everything around him. Joe pushes forward. He's grounded in his faith, proud to be an American. Joe works 40 hours a week. He's earning about $1,200 a month. But the national average right now, cost of living for a single person, close to $1,400 for a one-bedroom apartment, about $1,500 for basics like food, utilities, and transportation. So he faces a $1,600 shortfall every month, and that's before he puts food on the table. Joe relies on SNAP. He uses food stamps, and he qualifies under the FY 2026 rules, which state gross income under $2,608 for one person in most states with broad-based eligibility. After deductions for high rent and a 20% earned income allowance, that brings his net income to what's treated as zero since it doesn't overshoot what they should be making, um, granting him nearly the maximum, which would be $298 a month. Realistically, he gets around 275 after adjustments, which is a good 22% boost to his paycheck. That covers half his groceries, but he still has to choose between rent and quality, nutritious foods. So Joe's story is the same story as millions of Americans. There's over 7 million people on food stamps in America today. So that's kind of insane. I think they said 40 million. What the fuck? That's insane. That's a problem. People should be making more money. That shouldn't be that common. So let's try to figure out where is all this coming from and who's at work, who's going behind the scenes. What is food stamps? Why is this a thing? So first of all, it comes from us. It costs us $100 billion a year, part of 142 billion in nutrition programs taxpayers pay. This is down 18% inflation adjusted from 2023 after COVID expansions. For 2025, estimates remain around 100 billion for the year. Economic Research Services supporting 39 to 40 million people are on food stamps after the 2025 cuts from the Big Beautiful Bill. That's a 1.5% of federal spending, sustaining low-income diets amid inflation. But we're not left alone. Nestle, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, and Kellogg, they play their part as well. Open Secrets reports that food processing, sales, and lobbying has spent 23 million in 2025 plus 16 million from food and beverage, totaling around 40 million total, which is a million, which is really $1 per person on unemployment, which is valid. So it costs $1 a head to buy off all of that shit. This equates to approximately 75,000 per member of Congress. So if they want to lobby and just give that direct to them, that's a 75K deposit. That's a boat. That's a truck. That's really whatever they want. This buys influence. It blocks junk food restrictions in SNAP, weakening the dietary guidelines across the spectrum for the U.S. as a whole, and securing subsidies for cheap processing, fillers, and ingredients. For comparison, in 2014 and 2015, they spent 77 million on guidelines alone for eating guidelines and SNAP guidelines. Now it's on to sustaining the addiction cycle. Comprehensive lobbying data begins in 1998, following the Lobbying Disclosure Act of 1995. The total spent by these sectors from 1998 to 2025, adjusted to 2025 dollars, is estimated at about 1.75 billion. Before 1998, data was limited and not really comparable. But what is clear is the system is rotten. It's been engineered over decades to promote junk while undermining real farms. It started in the 1930s as food stamps for surplus wheat and dairy. They were supporting smaller farms, and a lot of farms existed at the time in the 30s. So there was overproduction of produce, and what they did was initiated a stamps program to allow the surplus wheat and dairy to get purchased for a discounted rate through government funding. This fed the farmers and kept them paid while also keeping the lowest impoverished stricken in the community fed and able to stay healthy and work towards productivity in society. By the 1970s, Nixon's agriculture secretary Earl Butz shifted policy, abandoning family farms for the get big or get out strategy, flooding markets with subsidized corn, wheat, and soy. USDA data shows from 1995 to 2023, corn received 116 billion in subsidies, soy received 46 billion, wheat received 48 billion, which is 75% of total subsidies to these commodities, while fruit and vegetables got less than $2 billion. In 1971, high fructose corn syrup was patented by Clinton Corn Processing Company, which is now part of Archer Daniel Midland. I'm not sure what they own, but they started this shit, so maybe someone should look into what they doing. And a breakthrough at the time that converted subsidized corn into ultra cheap sweeteners for sodas and processed foods. This drastically undercut cane sugar prices and enabled mass production of addictive, calorie-dense products. This patent, combined with corn subsidies, allowed high fructose corn syrup to dominate by the 1980s, appearing in everything from cereal to sauces. In 1977, the McGovern Committee issued warnings on excessive sugar and fat, but Big Food lobbied aggressively to dilute and bury the report. Reagan's 1980s administration cut fruit and vegetable programs to reduce the federal spending amid budget deficits and a push for deregulation, prioritizing commodity crops that benefited agribusiness donors and aligned with his free market ideology. These steps were viewed as trimming wasteful government intervention. This amplified corn and soy subsidies, further entrenching the imbalance. The 1990s then brought NAFTA and biotech advancements, which doubled yields and crushed prices for processed ingredients. Today, ultra-processed foods is compromising 60% of U.S. calories. Designed for addiction with artificial flavors and preservatives, farms have now consolidated. The top 10% receive 80% of government subsidies. Per the USDA and Environmental Working Group data, healthy foods remain unsubsidized with short shelf lives and higher prices. The result, CDC reports SNAP households face 2 to 3 times higher diabetes rate, with obesity exceeding 40% in poor areas. This is documented in the USDA.gov, CDC.gov, and OpenSecrets.org. This is all open information. So this has been a slow rolling scam from the 1930s surplus programs to today's $100 billion SNAP machine that's robbing everyone except for the elites on top. The farmers have suffered as family operations have collapsed under the Get Big or Get Out program, with 75% of $308 billion in subsidies directing towards mega crops like corn and soy, bankrupting fruit and vegetable growers, and overall consolidating land among the top 10% now who have 80% of government funding. Taxpayers who are fleeced continually for $100 billion annually to underwrite corporate low wages, such as Walmart having 100,000 employees on SNAP, reliant on SNAP for food, and then turning around to spend that money at Walmart to buy said food with their government money. This is corrupt as fuck. And if you're blaming your neighbor, you're corrupt as fuck. Seek help. Big Food has invested $40 million a year in lobbying to perpetuate this dominance, amounting to an estimated $1.75 billion since 1998 alone in today's currency. So who is really to blame? Is it Nestle, Pepsi, Coke, Kellogg, agribusinesses that copyright these chemicals and formulas to create more and more addictive processed foods, funneling millions into campaign contributions via super PACs, directly lobbying to influence farm bills, and funding think tanks to shift policy narratives? Was it companies that pay for research and development and lobbying to secure coin subsidies like high fructose corn syrup? By the 80s, they spent tens of millions annually to block sugar tariffs and promote high fructose corn syrup as a natural alternative, embedding it into the food supply from then on. Reagan's cuts to fruits and vegetables, which stems from his administration's fiscal conservatism during the early 1980s recession, aimed to slash $1.1 billion from school lunch programs and redirect funds to defense spending while appeasing agribusiness lobbyists who favored commodity crops over perishable produce that didn't store or export as profitable. I don't know. Is it employees like Dro, trapped in poverty wages, frozen since 2009, enduring a $1,600 a month shortfall against $2,900 cost of living each month, addicted to ultra-processed foods, driving 60% of calories in America, and pushing obesity above 40%, let alone the elderly, families, people outside major cities or in food deserts, single parents? Now, as science continues to reflect the value quality foods have on a person's health and mental function, the wealth gap widens. Fortune 500 executives amass billions as 1.15 million of their employees rely on food stamps today, transforming welfare into a corporate subsidy and dismantling the middle class. This is not an accident. This is policy-driven, engineered through decades of choices by friends that scratch each other's backs, and the cronies have to stop.